Happy Monday. Yesterday was kind of crazy with the number of games that we had at 1 o'clock and just keeping track of everything. But let's talk waiver wire pickups today to figure out who I should be looking to the waiver wire to grab due to some injuries and other things going on. What do you think?
Yeah, we'll get started with that. Yesterday was rough. It was exciting. I had so much fun watching those games and that Hail Mary pass by Jaden Daniels. I swear he like ran around for 10 seconds in that backfield to wait to be able to launch that ball. It was pretty amazing. So it was a lot of fun watching the games yesterday. It was also a bit of a challenge for me because going into the afternoon, I didn't know if Jaden Daniels was going to play or not. And on my fantasy team, I had Jaden Daniels and I had Terry McLaurin. And I wasn't really willing to double down on a 4 o'clock game and risk that Jaden Daniels wasn't gonna start. I mean, I felt like he was going to, but then I also was a little worried about the Bears defense, and I didn't wanna do both Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin on the same lineup, so I ended up picking up Bo Nix. We talked last week about Bo Nix, and I ended up doing it. He was sitting there available and scored 35 points for me, so even though I lost Jordan Mason last night in that lineup, I'm still gonna win because I at least swapped in Bo Nix, and he was worth even more than Jaden Daniels, and Jaden Daniels had a good day. Then I had a new thing pop up last night that was even more of a challenge. I was sitting there on the couch and I got an alert from ESPN that Rico Dowdle wasn't going to play, which there was no warning of this. And I went and researched it, and apparently he showed up at the 49ers stadium sick. So they just made him inactive. Well, that sent off a whole new level of emergency because all of the games have already started. And what do? You literally have to pick up anyone that's still sitting out there on waiver wires, and I got lucky that Ezekiel Elliott was there and I was able to swap him in, but that was still a big panic. And, all your best planning just doesn't make it go right sometimes. How was your
But
fantasy
that is
day?
it was okay. I struggled a little bit with some injuries, and I know in one of my DFS lineups I had Jordan Love, and so that was great to see him go out in the middle, but
Eh,
happens.
Yeah, it does happen.
And
And that we're always just trying to navigate around that. And so now we're just over halfway through most of the fantasy football regular season in leagues. Most leagues are 14 weeks. So we've got 8 weeks down and 6 to go. And now we've got to make our teams playoff ready and be on the lookout for the teams that can do that. And we also have to navigate all of these upcoming bye weeks just when we're trying to win our fantasy leagues and make it to the
yes.
playoffs.
And this week, Pittsburgh Steelers and the 49ers are on bye. I know the 49ers are probably grateful so everyone can get some extra rest time. Um, Probably not impacting your fantasy team as much since I'm guessing you've moved off of some of those players since the number
Yeah.
of injuries.
I still have 49er players. I still have Jordan Mason that I'm going to be looking to backfill this week. I think he's going to be out a few weeks. And most of my issues are bye weeks, though. I don't have any Steeler players, so I don't have to worry about that.
Which is a good call out because 6 teams are on bye week 12 and another 6 on week 14. So make
Yeah.
sure you're checking your apps or their website so that you don't have multiple people on bye at the same time, and or find that out now. Start planning now.
Start planning. That's what I started doing today when I started, sitting down going, who's available on these waiver wires tomorrow night. Then I decided I needed to start planning, and I have kind of a mess coming up on the 14th. I talked about, picking up Bo Nix. Well, I was wondering, should I keep him? When's Jaden Daniels going to be on his bye? Well, unfortunately, they're both going to be on bye in week 14. So he's not going to help me in week 14. And I need to find a better backup than Bo Nix for week 14 at least. And if you get a chance to kind of sit down and plan and start looking through the next 6 weeks, I know it's hard to look through the next 6 weeks, but you can bring up the ESPN app and you can throw it on schedule. I wish they'd make, the bye stand out a little bit more, but you're really looking for how many players are you gonna have on bye and look down the column for the week and see who's on bye and how many you've got. And there, yeah, week 14 is my bad week. So look and see what your bad week is. And unfortunately, week 14 is going to be the week you're trying to win your champion or win your way into the playoffs. So it's going to be an important week, and you don't want to be planning that out at the last minute. We do still also have the NFL trade line looming a week away. That's the same day as Election Day, isn't it? November 5th.
It
That was
is. Yeah.
maybe they can give us, something to take our minds off the election and we'll get some last minute fireworks in the NFL trade room. But I kind of looked through it and things are looking a little worse. So last week we did have DeAndre Hopkins traded to the Chiefs and he got to play. That was exciting. I also had like a list of other players that I thought were good trade targets. Mike Williams is still sitting there with the New York Jets. He's my number one. He should move somewhere. And then DJ Chark and the Los Angeles Chargers. I also had Cortland Sutton on the list, but after the way Bo Nix decided to throw to him and they decided to use him on Sunday, I kind of scratched his name off of that trade list. And then my other one that I had targeted as a potential movement person was wide receiver Christian Kirk with the Jaguars, and that's not gonna happen because he took a hard hit and broke his collarbone on Sunday. So we'll
Well,
see
and
if Mike Williams or DJ Chark get to go anywhere.
the trade deadline can also be beneficial for the teams or the players on the teams that have people leaving. So, yeah, we saw DeAndre Hopkins leave, which then we all saw Calvin Ridley have a bunch of targets this weekend.
We did, and who knew? It wasn't like DeAndre Hopkins was getting all those targets. We also had, Mason Rudolph starting, and maybe he's kind of on board with starting now that he's had a couple weeks to do it. And I mean, they were playing the Lions, and the Lions just ran up the score and didn't seem to care after that. They were keeping them from scoring too many points, but they'd let you catch a pass here and there. But yeah, Ridley had a good day. It was kind of fun to see. So we'll see what else happens if any of these players move and if we get to see some new faces on some new teams to help out.
So let's jump into the waiver wire and who we should pick up. But before we do, if you are not subscribed, don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button if you're enjoying this podcast so you don't miss a beat and don't miss any of our free contest or future episodes.
Yeah. So let's start off with wide receivers. I feel like this list, we keep hammering on this list and no one's going out and picking up these players, I guess. So they're still out there available or you haven't had the need. And maybe this latest round of injuries is going to drive you to picking up these players. Keon Coleman, I'm pretty sure we've talked about him last week. So Buffalo Bills wide receivers, 59% available. And up next, he gets to play the Miami Dolphins that's a great matchup. It doesn't look too much better for the Bills than the Miami Dolphins. And after that, it actually does get better. They get the Indianapolis Colts, then they've got Kansas City. So we'll shove off that Kansas City matchup and we'll just worry about these next two for the Bills. And Coleman's becoming a consistent contributor now that they added Amari Cooper. And I don't know if it's just freed up Coleman or if he has kind of worked things out with Josh Allen, but he is consistently getting his 7 targets the last few weeks and contributing in this pass game. And those matchups are just amazing with Miami and Indianapolis.
Who else? I think Cedric Tillman on Cleveland since Cleveland now has a new quarterback. We might
Uh,
look to Cleveland to pick up someone.
yeah, a new old quarterback, but it was fun seeing Jameis Winston chuck the ball. And I had picked the Ravens, and that cost me a bet. But anyhow, I'm pretty sure everyone liked watching Jameis Winston throw the ball down the field, even though he should have had like 3 or 4 interceptions. The Ravens just couldn't make it happen. He made some bad pass decisions, but Cedric Tillman still came out on top for that. He was our wide receiver 3 for the weekend for Sunday. not before the Monday night games. This is being recorded before the Monday night games. So he had 25 fantasy points, which was a really great day for wide receivers because we didn't have very many above 20 fantasy points. And he's stepped in since Amari Cooper left for those Buffalo Bills and Jameis Winston took over. He's looked great. He's got that chemistry with Winston. Next up, they've got the Chargers, which can be a tough matchup. The Chargers defense has played well, but they don't play as well against the pass. So maybe they will be passing it a little bit more. And at least it's in Cleveland. So that's a good matchup. Next up, they've got a bye. And then the week after that, if you do have bye week issues, the week 11 matchup against the New Orleans Saints is just a great one. And I'll be looking to maybe see if I can work him into my roster.
Ooh, yeah.
I I
Looking at
did
week
play
11,
him.
it looks like Tampa and Carolina. I don't think anyone's gonna have anyone from Carolina, but if you have Marvin Harrison Jr., he's gonna go on bye week 11.
Yeah, you might be looking for a wide receiver. I did play Cedric Tillman in daily fantasy, and that went very well. That was a good pick for Cedric Tillman. I imagine his price is going up this week.
What about running backs? You got any suggestions there? I think we're getting slim
Eh,
on running backs as they all get beat up this season.
yeah, the running backs are really dropping. So they're either very split backfields, sometimes three running backs in that backfield, like we're seeing in Tampa Bay with Rashad White and Sean Tucker and Bucky Irving. Although they all seem to get some carries and get to contribute somewhat, we always try to steer away from when there's 2 to 3 running backs that are equally getting work like that. This week, we don't really have many that you can look to pick up. So Isaiah Guerendo with the San Francisco 49ers, we did see Jordan Mason leave the game with a shoulder injury. He re-aggravated that shoulder injury. They're on bye this week, but I still think that Jordan Mason's gonna be out a bit out after that. And what do you think about Christian McCaffrey? Is he gonna come back after their bye week? Is he gonna be back in week 10? How you feeling about this?
I I I would be surprised. I feel like I haven't heard anything, and I feel if he was, they'd be building it up and be like, "Oh, McCaffrey's coming back week after week 9 or something." And even if they do bring him back, I wouldn't be surprised if he's limited. There's
Yeah.
so many times where they wanna ease him back in, and this kind of injury, the Achilles tendonitis, you
I've
don't
had
wanna.
Achilles tendonitis from marathon running, and it's an overuse injury, and it doesn't wanna go away. It takes months, and it takes wearing other shoes when you're just sitting around the house, and it is painful, and it lingers, and they can't thrust him back into a big workload. I don't think we're gonna see him. I think at best, we would see him in December and maybe for the playoffs, and they've just gotta position themselves a little bit better at this point. Their division's kind of a mess anyway. So I don't think we're gonna see him quickly. Maybe extremely limited, but I'm still kinda suspecting we won't see that unless they really need him. So Isaiah Guerendo, you need to go pick him up. I'm gonna probably dump Mason and pick up Guerendo at least for the next 4 weeks. I would think that Mason's gonna be out probably 3 to 4 weeks, and we only have 6 more weeks in our regular season fantasy leagues. So on running backs, we should talk about another situation since we are looking at the last remaining weeks of fantasy football regular season and then playoffs. And so it's time to seriously think about what we refer to as handcuffs. And that's picking up whoever the back is that's behind the running back that you have. So if you have Bijan Robinson, you should be trying to add Tyler Algier to your roster just in case something happens to Bijan. Then you would already have your backup planned with Tyler Algier. And a lot of our backups are still sitting out there on the waiver wires. They're also good pickups to consider if you need somebody this week. But at the same time, if you're planning for the next few weeks, then you want to consider getting your running backs handcuff. Braylon Allen for Brees Hall is another great example. And then Zach Charbonnet for Kenneth Walker III. We know he gets injured sometimes and misses a few games. So you definitely would like to have Charbonnet on your roster if that's going to happen.
And that's not gonna cover you for bye week, but that's gonna cover you if your main RB1 gets injured. You
Right.
have their backup one that you know is gonna get all the work.
Exactly. Yeah. You're just planning for what if, and it's not going to navigate your bye weeks. But if you get an injury at a really bad time, you've already planned ahead. So let's talk about National Tight End Day. That was fun. I think next
I feel
year we
like they
have
didn't
to,
build it up enough.
yeah, next year we have to take this a little bit more seriously. We had 17 touchdowns by tight ends, by 15 tight ends. So a couple got 2 of them, and they were on 13 teams, which is kind of amazing. Yeah, so there were some teams that had multiple tight ends get touchdowns as well. And I wondered kind of how that compared to other weeks. So I went and pulled the data for the first 8 weeks, and that was way off the charts. It wasn't even close. So week 8, we saw 17 touchdowns by tight ends. Week 7 was 8. Week 6 was 9. The only one that somewhat compared was week 5, and that was 14. And week 2, we only had 3 touchdowns by tight ends. And yeah, weeks 1, 2, and 3 were 5 or less by tight ends. So the tight ends really started slowly. They've been gathering up a little bit of speed. I wonder if that's how, when our defenses are getting a little bit better, if we're seeing more work and shorter work going to our tight ends and they're finding ways to get them more involved in the game to keep the ball moving. Either way, it
And
was fun.
injuries.
Yeah, and
More
injuries. So
injuries mid-season, so
that's true. So Tampa Bay that had injuries to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans just fed everything to Cade Otton. It was great. They didn't win, but it was close and it was a lot of fun to watch.
especially after we talked, I think, just last week about picking up K. Dotton as a waiver
Yes.
wire potential.
Yeah. I played him in daily. He wasn't available in my leagues though, so I didn't get to pick him up. That's okay. I did okay. I had Kyle Pitts. He had a good day as well. Hopefully you had
He had a
a tight
touchdown.
end. Yeah. Hopefully you had a tight end that had a touchdown since there were 15 of them.
Pitts had one that was scrutinized as potentially being dropped before the touchdown, but he got his touchdown.
He got lucky. Yeah. Hopefully he won't make that decision again to run with the ball, in his hand behind him and drop it as he enters the end zone. I was hoping it wasn't going to be a fumbling out of the end zone, which is the worst rule in the NFL. I hate that rule. They need to get rid of that
Oh,
rule because,
wait, I don't know this rule.
well, if you fumble out of the end zone, so you're going down to score, and if you fumble the ball and it goes out of bounds out of the end zone, then it's the other team's ball.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the
I
logic there? Why
I don't know. It's like the worst rule in football. It drives us crazy. We're always wanting them to change that one.
Okay, new petition to get rid of that rule because it doesn't make sense to me.
No.
Maybe if there was some logical like, "Oh, yes, because of X, Y, and Z, it should be
Yeah.
turned over."
If they would have ruled he fumbled that on the 3-inch line, that would have not only not been a touchdown, it would have been Tampa Bay's ball. So, tight ends that we can recommend picking up if you somehow missed having a tight end with a touchdown. Lauren, I think you mentioned Adam Troutman.
Yeah, I was seeing him, I saw him get a touchdown this weekend, and it was one of those ones where I was like, "Oh, I don't know this name. I'm gonna note it down for our waiver wire episode today." So Denver actually had 2 tight ends with touchdowns yesterday.
They did. They were using them. Bo Nix was going crazy, along with using Cortland Sutton. So yeah, Nate Adkins also had one. They they were using him. So he's an option. Not my favorite option. My favorite option this week is Taysom Hill. So he came back for the New Orleans Saints after the broken rib issue. They didn't use him that much this past weekend, not as a quarterback anyway. And Rattler was very ineffective. It wasn't a good day for the Saints. But Taysom Hill should be picking up more work in the next few weeks. Even if Derek Carr returns, we always see that package of quarterback plays for Taysom Hill, which makes him very intriguing as a tight end because you have a lot of upside where he can run the ball and where he also gets to play quarterback. He's 70% available right now. And next up, he gets to play Carolina and then Atlanta and Cleveland. But I love the Carolina matchup. Another thing I wanted to bring up, be sure you're checking for random drops. I know that we talk through these players that we think are good pickups, and we don't always highlight. I mean, we don't know everyone's league. So I was looking at one of our leagues, and Dallas Goddard's sitting out there available. If you don't have an IR spot and you've got somebody that someone dropped and they probably shouldn't have. I wouldn't have dropped Dallas Goddard and he should be coming back. We all thought he was going to kind of possibly play last Sunday. So there's a good chance I think that he plays this coming weekend and he's a great tight end. So always make sure that you're looking for drops that were a mistake by one of your fellow fantasy team managers like Dallas Goddard. I do like one other one. I do like Hunter Henry, but the whole concussion situation for Drake May kind of makes Hunter Henry a no-go for me.
We saw some conversion from Brissett yesterday.
Mm, yeah.
But yeah, cautious with Hunter Henry now. Speaking of Drake May and concussions, let's talk quarterbacks and who you might want to look for there because I guess, first up might be Daniel Jones, who is 85% available.
Yeah, Daniel Jones is interesting. I can't believe we're recommending Daniel Jones. He may be my week 14 solution as well. I know. I can't it's hard to imagine Daniel Jones saving my fantasy team in week 14, but up next they have Washington who their defense has figured something out because they're not the pushover Washington defense that we saw in the first 3 weeks for sure. They looked really good yesterday against the Bears. After that, though, they get Carolina, and that game's going to be in Germany. So it's not really anyone's home game. Then they have a bye. So Daniel Jones isn't quite, the plan maybe this weekend. I like him in Carolina or in the Germany game. Then he gets a bye. Then he plays Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay's been giving up a lot of fantasy points to the passers. So I do like that one. I would think they'll be behind. I would think everybody's been been passing with Tampa Bay. It just like lights on fire those games. Then they have Dallas and then they have New Orleans. And I love the New Orleans matchup as well. And I think that's the one that ends up week 14. So I know we're looking like way far ahead, but if you are planning ahead, he's not one that you would think about. And I do like him in certain matchups. He is really boom or bust. So he's got 3 games where he was over 22 points and he's got four games where he was under 12 points. So you're either going to hit it with Daniel Jones or it's not going to pan out. So be very careful the matchups that you play him in and make sure that Malik Neighbors is playing in those matchups.
Any other suggested options? Maybe Matthew Stafford?
Yeah, Matthew Stafford got Puka Nakua and Cooper Cup back. So welcome back, Matthew Stafford. And he is 60% available. Up next, he's got Seattle and then Miami and then New England, which are all really great matchups. 2 of them are on the road. Only Miami is at home. But still, he's super accurate. And with these matchups and with his wide receivers back and everything moving in that offense, he's a great pickup. And also, his bye week was week 6, so he's good to go for the rest of the season.
Maybe that's what I'm gonna be looking for as I'm running into bye week issues.
He's a good one. I didn't find him available, but he is supposed to be available. We must have somebody sitting on him in our girls' league. Maybe I tried to
So on
trade
the other
for him.
side of the ball. Oh, that'd be a good call. I haven't done a trade before. I'm gonna go try to propose one later.
There you go. Yeah, try to snag Matthew Stafford. All right, let's move to
Matthew
defense.
Snafford,
Yeah, yeah.
like Snappard. Or let's move to the other side of the ball with defense. Who are you streaming this week and targeting?
Well, I think I got the Chargers last week, so I'm gonna probably be sticking with them. They were the one that we recommended to have and go for, a few weeks. But if you didn't get them, then Cincinnati Bengals are 69% available, and they get to host the Raiders in Cincinnati. So it's all about just this matchup because after that they have the Ravens and then they have the Chargers. So it's just for this week against the Raiders. The Raiders they've allowed 25 sacks over the last 8 weeks and 17 turnovers. And they're playing Gardner Minshew. So you're going to be looking for a turnover. The only other one, and this one, I know we watched Tennessee Titans give up 52 points to the Detroit Lions yesterday. It was kind of like, you get a touchdown and you get a touchdown and you get a touchdown.
I will say we've seen everyone struggle with the Detroit defense, though, it seems. Or the
Yeah,
Detroit offense.
that's true. But the Titans just seem to roll over. So I'm expecting that this week, one, it's going to be improved. And they're 98% available. And they are playing New England with Jacoby Brissett. All of those things are combining for a 1 week streaming defense that if you can't get somebody else, then the Tennessee Titans are probably your option. After that, you can get rid of them. They play the Chargers. Chargers actually may be a decent matchup just because the Chargers like to move at a slower pace and the Titans do as well. They just like to crawl through that game and have it in 9-6. And if you can have a game like that, then it's perfectly fine for your defense. But after that, they get Minnesota. So you're definitely going to be dumping them then.
It sounds like they also might be a good option this weekend for DFS, depending on their price maybe.
They may be. Yeah, we may be looking at them to see what we can do because they are at home. I do like that. They're probably going to be cheap. We're definitely going to have to consider the Titans for DFS. Shall we run through the injury report from Sunday and what we got going on
Yes.
this week in injuries?
Injury report.
We need like the
Starting with
ambulance sound.
quarterbacks.
Go ahead.
Oh. So if you have Drake May or Jordan Love, you might be looking for a new quarterback. Drake May left early and will probably be out this week after getting a concussion, and Jordan Love could be related to MCL sprain. They think he can play this week, but I don't think I would be starting him, or it might be like your situation where you're last minute looking for who you can grab. So prepare for that.
Yeah, be really careful with that Jordan Love. It didn't look good when he left the field, and I'm wondering if there's a little bit more wrong there. I'm guessing he'll probably undergo another MRI, and they'll try to figure out that situation. They want him to play, but they haven't looked that bad with Malik Willis, so they need to see what they can do to get him healthy going into December. On the wide receiver front, I think we mentioned Christian Kirk, Jacksonville Jaguars. He broke his collarbone. I was watching that play, and you could tell instantly he broke his collarbone, I thought. It was hard land on the shoulder, and he rolled over just squirming like a bug, holding his collarbone. So he was out. It was a really bad day to be a Jacksonville Jaguar wide receiver. I know it's usually a bad day to be one of their wide receivers, but it was extraordinarily bad this past Sunday. They lost all three of their wide receivers. They also lost Brian Thomas Jr. with a chest/rib injury who landed on the ball. And I don't know if he broke a rib landing on the ball, but he's probably out 2 to 4 weeks. So maybe we see him back week 11. Then they also lost Gabe Davis with a shoulder injury, and he's probably out 2 to 4 weeks as well.
So is Jacksonville going to the waiver wires looking to pick up people now?
Yeah, they may be, yeah, they're, like, digging through the practice squads and seeing what they can do or looking for one of the trades that we talked about, and maybe they can bring back DJ Chark. That wouldn't be bad for them. Anyhow, Houston also lost Stephon Diggs to a knee injury. It may be ACL and season ending, so we're gonna have to wait and see for some more news, probably later today or tomorrow on how long Stephon Diggs is gonna be out. That was ugly, though.
They're hurting now with Nico and Diggs out.
Yeah, they are. I think Nico gets to come back maybe week 11? We'll have to check that.
Yeah. And then
Alright.
Debo surprised me by starting last night's game.
Yeah, I was surprised too, but he started, but he didn't finish. So now he has a rib and a wrist injury and his lungs, and you could tell that he was still, labored breathing and having a hard time of everything even though he was on the field. And now he's going to be out with this rib injury maybe a little while. So they do have their bye week this week. He gets at least an extra week to heal and he'll probably be back week 10.
And then
And
we
then we
only had one running back.
Yeah, we talked earlier about Jordan Mason with his shoulder injury and the re-injury to the AC joint. Again, week 9 bye, but he's probably out, 2 to 4 weeks with the AC joint injury. 3 to 4 weeks is probably average, so we probably won't see him back for a few extra weeks.
And that's all our key injuries, so it's not a super long list and mostly Jacksonville related. Uh,
It was all in that
but
game at least. You tossed in Jordan Love too, and that game just was bad.
yeah, hopefully they all have better luck this next weekend or rest up. Well, and that's that. Good luck to our listeners to picking up who they want off the waiver wire. I'm going to be heading to the waiver wire I think now and setting aside some time to do some planning cuz I haven't done all my bye week and playoff planning. And as I think you pointed out, you can still go from last to first place by doing some strategy now.
You can. Some people are going to get caught not strategizing, and they may be at the top right now, but the next 6 weeks can take them down. So plan well and see what you can pick up over the next few weeks.